You imagine you gonna like swat a bat and he turns around and blasts you with heat vision. You're like, all right, moving out of this house. You
I'm
can
out.
have it.
Earth was nice while it lasted. Bats have it now.
We're done.
We're good. I'm gonna go. I was about to say go find a cave, but the bats will find you in a cave. And welcome back to the Men of Steel podcast. I'm Case Aiken, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, J. Mike Folson.
Welcome back, everybody. Glad to have you.
We are so happy to be doing this episode. It is part of our Dark Knight Fortnite, our Batman marathon that we are doing in relation to the Batman coming out. So today this is still a Superman show, so you won't be surprised at the episode that we're doing. Today we are talking about the 90s Elseworlds book, Superman Speeding Bullets, a.k.a. the one where he's Batman. And to have that conversation, we are joined by one of my co-stars on the S.H.U. podcast. We've got Zack in the house.
Hello. I'm still not entirely sure how I ended up here.
That's fair. So listeners may know that we have had June and Alex frequently on the show from the S.H.U. podcast, and they are the game mustards running the mixed universe of all that. But I wanted to reach out and see which of the other people on my superhero podcast or superhero universe podcast would want to come on and talk about a superhero on my Superman show. Super. So I put out a call, and Zack, you piped in, and I was like, yeah, fuck, we haven't actually directly spoken because we're on different shows. We haven't had our crossover yet.
I think I looked at the picture of the cover, and I thought it looked cool. And I think that's about it.
It is a very cool cover. So why don't we just start talking about that? Because, man, this book is such a cool premise. I think that more than anything else, the idea of just like, oh, yeah, Superman, but he's Batman sounds so cool.
Well, I mean, I won't spoil anything, but like over the past couple of months, he's been an Amish farmer. He's been Russian, and now he's Batman.
Yeah.
We've had a huge variety of Superman so far.
So I'm a giant nerd. I've been a nerd for forever. I've been a huge comic book nerd. In fact, there's a home video of me trying to explain the premise of this comic to a friend of mine who was clearly not paying attention. Like, I was like 13 for that one. So the fact that I'm 37 right now, so 24 years of like kind of thinking about this book sells the premise on this one. And I'm a giant nerd. J. Mike, I subject you to my nerddom, and you are nice enough to put up with me for it.
Well, I learn lots of stuff. It's so cool. So, I have fun.
But before we got into this, Zack, you revealed that you're not as big of a comic book nerd.
Oh, my God.
I am a comic movie nerd. I have not read, until this month, I had not read like a comic book in maybe 3 years or so.
Which this I'm very excited about, because I think that this is a really big like surface comic. I think it's designed to be innately cool for someone who doesn't really like know that much to like come in for. So like while I was deeply, deeply, deeply invested in this all, I'm really curious how it came off to the two of you, particularly you, Zack, since you're not as big of a comic book person. You're an MCU person, like, and so I'm just like kind of intrigued about this one because I think that the premise is really cool. I think that the story honestly feels like a movie.
Yeah, it would work really good as a one-shot movie.
Yeah, I feel like this was written to be an animated movie, but it was before DC was doing that.
Dang, I want to see this movie, actually.
Yeah, kind of. Like, can you imagine like a Dini-verse, like a Bruce Timm style Batman, but it's Superman, and like we've got the design for the costume that's going on here. So here's the thing. It's not the premise for the book is that Superman's rocket crash lands at Wayne Manor, and he's raised as Bruce Wayne. And so when the thing happens to the Waynes they do, the thing, he is Bruce Wayne in that situation. And he is the one who loses his parents, and he is the one who goes on to become Batman. And I think that premise sounds like really fucking cool, because you're like, oh man, can you imagine all the training of Batman and so forth combined with the Superman powers? Like, that's so awesome. And they go a little different. This is more of like an amalgam, like a Spider-Boy or a Super Soldier, or like all like that whole run where it's like, we're going to take the two properties and fuse them together in a way that is just one coherent thing. Like, the big twist of this book is that in it, Lex Luthor is the Joker. And they actually fit the two characters together pretty well.
Yeah, it worked out pretty good.
But it means that it's not like a Superman with all of Batman's strengths plus the Superman powers. It's its own thing. It is this like weird fusion of the two characters.
Yeah, because his parents, they kind of fused both Martha's and Thomas and Jonathan together, where like Thomas taught him more of like the science, the detective skills, and Martha was more of the
heart,
loving heart. Yeah, the heart person. So when they died, he just became like Batman from Dark Knight Rises.
I did appreciate that. Didn't he immolate the gunman with his laser
yes, he
vision?
did.
He torched that guy.
No, he burned his face away with his heat vision.
Did he kill the guy, or did he just destroy his face?
They found him dead.
Okay,
Yeah, he's dead.
Yeah. This is a very dark book from the standpoint of like Batman is brutal in this. Like they make a big point about that one.
Yeah.
Batman with super strength equals bad.
Yeah.
Batman plus super strength with no restraints equals
and
everybody dies.
plus laser eyes. Don't forget laser eyes.
Yeah. So the thing that I found interesting about it from a standpoint of like how you're going to structure this character is that it is actually a very different conversation about the nature of Batman's crusade. So rather than being like, okay, I was a boy, I couldn't stop my parents, I really don't want this to happen to anyone again. Superman could and in fact, the story becomes more about how that grief is eating him alive. And I think that's a really cool kind of slant on it, but it does feel like the slant of someone who, from a meta perspective, is a Superman fan. Like at the end of it, it's like, well, he had to move through all that grief that, like he limited himself and now he can be the true great hero, Superman.
It almost seemed to me like he didn't realize that he burned the guy alive. I think there was a moment in it where he remembered that he could have saved his parents. Yeah,
because he doesn't go off and act as like, he doesn't do the training montage. There's like no Batman Begins sequence in here. It's just one day after like living this like cloistered life of repressed grief like his neuroses is collecting newspaper clippings of violent crimes rather than like training to be Batman. And then one day like someone breaks into his house and he's like remembers that he has superpowers and he's like, oh, I could have done stuff before. Why didn't I do stuff before? And so all that grief and rage and whatnot is combined with where he had the potential to do something and failed to act.
I think the gunman that had gone to rob his house had actually shot him. Like the gunman had actually shot him after his parents had gotten shot, and he immolated them. And he does kind of the same thing after the guys robbing him try and shoot him. And he ends up burning them too.
Yeah, I
think it's just more like he got his memory kind of triggered in some kind of way.
Yeah, because he starts screaming like the bullets. And he freaks out, and Alfred's like, "Dear Master Wayne."
Right, because they note that he was left catatonic when his parents were killed, and even though he did like fire off a heat beam, like after that he was just sort of like staring off into the distance, saying the bullets, and so he exists in this world where he doesn't really remember the events until this unlocks all those memories, and that's like, so he's never training to be Batman. He just discovers his powers and like remembers that night and everything, and decides like, okay, well, I'm in a weird manner that is surrounded by bats at every given moment. Like, they feel like my brothers and sisters because like them, I can hear everything, and like them, I can fly.
Oh, God.
And now I'm Batman.
Hearing this talked about out loud, comics are weird.
They're so weird. They're so weird. But I will say, from the standpoint of like deciding to call yourself Batman, this Bruce Wayne has a better claim to it. He's like, I can fly too. I also can hear everything. That's really cool. The heat vision, pretty weird. Not any bats with heat vision.
At least I hope not.
I know, right?
Terrifying.
It's bad enough that they have sonar and echolocation.
You imagine you go like swat a bat and he turns around, then blasts you with heat vision. You're like, all right, moving out of this house.
I'm out. Earth was nice while it lasted. Bats have it now.
We're done.
We're good. I'm gonna go. I was about to say go find a cave, but the bats will find you in a cave.
Oh, God.
Elon was right. We have to go to Mars. The bats have heat vision. We're done.
One of the big things I remember, I like this not Superman outfit, the Batman outfit. I liked a lot more how it covered his face entirely. It's so much more intimidating.
Yeah. I really like this look. Like it's basically the Batman suit that we all know, but with like a couple touches. Like there's like an extra kind of element of what looks like padding or like armor to it, which is less necessary on this Batman than others, but like looks good.
This Batman has 16 abs, not just 8.
Well, yeah, he's Kryptonian. Everything's doubled.
Also, like he has like the Spawn cape too, where it's super long.
Oh yeah, it's a big cape.
Yeah, it's a real big cape.
Yeah, and then the bat symbol is the pentagon shape for Superman, which I like that as a fusion. I mean, again, this is an amalgam in a lot of ways. The belt feels more like the Superman belt, even though it's actually like it's still segmented like a utility belt, and the angling on it is actually, I guess, closer to like the Earth 2 Robin outfit. I don't think that was intentional. I'm just being a nerd and pointing out it. Like it has this like V design to it that doesn't really look like Superman or Batman's, but somehow it like works as a fused element between them, you know?
You pointed out all this stuff, and then I had to go back, like, is it really? I'm like, oh my God, it is. I never noticed that the symbol was a mixture of the two.
Yeah.
I don't pay attention.
And then he's got the full mask part, like it completely covers his face. And they've got whites for his eyes, but in my head, I'm like, he doesn't need those. He can, like they keep talking about how his X-ray vision. He can see through everything. Like it could just be a solid mask. And how freaky would that be?
That'd be terrifying.
Terrible. It's like, it's so much scarier when you don't know where they're looking. I don't know why.
Yeah, so it's a really cool design. And yeah, as we alluded to, when he takes on the mantle of Batman, man, he is a violent motherfucker.
Oh yeah.
I don't think violent's a word for it. Like Batman already like runs around and beats up homeless people. He took like to a whole new level in this book.
I think one of the little pages they were talking about how you could hear bone shattering with every hit or something.
Yeah,
that was Lois. Yeah, she was like she could smell the flesh burning, and she could hear the bone snapping when he punched people.
I'm mad at Lois. Lois should have run. That's a red flag.
We are introduced to the classic reason that you would have a Lex Luthor matchup against a Bruce Wayne situation, which is that LexCorp tries to buy Wayne Tech or Wayne Enterprises or whatever, and Bruce Wayne emerges, and it all feels very Batman Begins.
Yeah.
About 7 years before Batman Begins.
Yeah.
That's where they got the idea from. Yeah, he comes in and takes over. Well, stops the merger. Also, I didn't realize that it was Lois narrating until like she showed up.
Yeah, well,
I thought it was Alfred.
Nor should you necessarily. I mean, you just know it's a character who knows them. Yeah. And then here's a way that I thought it was a really good way of combining the characters. Bruce Wayne owns the Gotham Gazette and basically hires the whole Daily Planet staff. And the in-universe explanation for why he can do that is that the Daily Planet had been bought by Lex Luthor because Superman wasn't there to stop him having his ascendancy in Metropolis. Mm-hmm. And so he's able to just like buy up anyone who says bad words about him. So this bald billionaire newspaper owner, like a Jeffrey Bezos style.
I mean, really? Bezos before Bezos.
I want to see Jeff Bezos dress up as the Joker now.
He might have.
That's essentially what this Lex Luthor is Jeff Bezos as the Joker.
Oh, absolutely. Have you seen the footage of like Bezos testing out those like mechanical arms that match his movements? Like,
that's a power
I'm like, you let this go out on social media? Like, are you just being like, I am full on Lex Luthor, guys? Like, come at me.
My brain went to Doc Ock, and that's scary too. He's gonna have 4 of them eventually.
But here's a fun moment in terms of like having Bruce Wayne be fit this like Superman kind of role, but also having an explanation for the things that Bruce Wayne is actually good for. So he buys the Gotham Gazette, or he already owned it. I'm not quite sure which. Either way, he takes an active role in trying to shape a newspaper that can like seek out the corruption in the city and do all the things that would have been really nice to have happen in Gotham City, notoriously corrupt city of scum where every politician's paid off. Like, hey, that's a cool idea. I like that.
But then like as soon as Lois shows up, he kind of flips the script and turns back into Clark, where he's like super clumsy and super goofy. And I was like, oh, there it is.
Yep. Well, I think that is Kal-El's take on being like, how do I flirt? Like, he's just not very good at it.
It's like he like immediately like falls over, and she's like, wow, so clumsy. But it turns out she's just like it too.
Remember, in this continuity, Jor-El and Lara were matched up by computer. It was through a dating app. Maybe the House of L has no game. But yeah, so we get Perry, we get all that. But here's the thing I like. Keep in mind that this is the 90s. The consolidation of media hadn't gone to the same degree that it has now. Like, we're making the Jeff Bezos comparison. So this past week, I had seen a lot of people having a lot of the usual. So yet another Twitter user had the statement of Batman would do a lot more for the world with his wealth than with just beating up people. And immediately all the Batman stands, but like, surprisingly more just like comics fans in general jumped on the whole this is a tired take, like this is so lazy, yada yada yada, and it felt just as toxic as the standpoint of like trying to make fun of Batman. And I was getting really frustrated by it because people who are usually like comics should be fun and inclusive were also like coming off as very gatekeepy, and I found that like frustrating. So I wrote this whole thing about how like one of the problems of Batman is that like wealth as we understand it today, has scaled in a weird way. So like when Batman first came out, he was the son of a doctor. He had a lot of money so that he didn't have to work, but it was, and he could afford whatever he wanted, but it wasn't that he was like this like billionaire, trillionaire, you know, like our concept of these, of this like kleptocratic, like ruling aristocracy that exists now. And it's escalated over time because like he has to constantly be rich, but a millionaire is no longer rich. And so like, now we have to have the billionaires and like the neo robber barons of this era he has to be comparable to. And that's where it starts to feel like, oh, but you can't have that much wealth and be a good person. In the 90s and more, I'm thinking like, look, these are not good people because they're still all shitty ones, but like a Hearst type figure or someone who's like trying to like put out like the news, like feels like a good use of your like millions of dollars where you're like, I'm going to really try to like clean up Gotham City by like revealing the truth. Feels like a positive use of wealth in a city that is mostly about corruption, if that makes sense.
A little bit.
I don't know. Like it's always the problem of like, well, he is so rich, like he could solve so many problems. But I kind of like it. I like that like Lois like responds well to like Clark or not Clark. Of Bruce being the newspaper owner. Like he's like filling in almost like the Earth 2 Superman role where he's the editor in chief of the Daily Planet, you know, like that sort of like voice trying to be like, no, we have to get to the truth. We have to do all this, as opposed to the man on the ground who's actually getting the news. He's the one trying to like put people out there to do it. And that feels like a good organizing principle of justice that is not usually a thing that Batman is doing in his day life.
You sleep during your day?
Well, but this one doesn't have to, so that's a good part.
Well, he says it like a bunch. Like he's like, yeah, I don't really sleep that much. I do most of my work at nighttime, and she's like, yeah, cool, whatever. And she like keeps on going.
Right.
I can't escape the feeling that this comic would have been just a little bit better if it had like 10 more pages.
Yeah, it feels just a little too short.
It feels like they rushed the ending to where it doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense. Because I can't help but feel like there's really no reason that I can see why Lois and Superman in this, or, well, Bruce, that's going to get annoying. There's really no reason why Lois and Bruce should really like each other. It's just like, oh, it feels very tropey that he seems to stop on this downward spiral of, you know, not having a real regard for human life, where he's just constantly like really breaking people. It's just, Lois seems to be like, oh, but you're better than you are because I say you are. It felt really rushed and like it didn't have like merit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like we needed like a real conversation between her and Bruce, getting into like why he was limiting himself, because like her narration's kind of filling in some of the details, but like, you know, I get why they would be attracted to each other. Like, yeah, Kal-El likes Lois Lane. That's always like, that's just his type. It's Lois Lane
across the multiverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, the attraction makes sense. It's just, it doesn't necessarily explain why he suddenly starts holding back. There's really no clear moment. And it might just also be kind of some of the artwork where it looks like he is brutally beating people, but supposedly he's still holding back.
Yeah, I mean, like, so we get the whole thing where he freaks her out as Batman. Like, this is where she describes, like, the burning flesh, the breaking bones, the, like, oh my God, Batman just, like shooting people with his heat vision while he's, like, like hitting them really hard is a terrifying thing.
You broke that guy in half.
So she like slaps him away, and they describe how he comes off as like a hurt child. And like the big thesis of the Batman persona in this book, I feel, is it is that childish rage as opposed to a more adult concept of power of action. They talk about how he's limiting himself by just acting in vengeance as opposed to being this like optimistic figure that Superman is. Like, that's the contrast right there. So like he is surprised at that reaction. And then we do get I also want to say Clark, this Bruce Lois like conversation at the Daily Planet where she talks about how Batman's not really doing good. And so there is like a moment of him kind of learning, but yeah, we need like another scene in there where he's like wrestling with that.
It's like they got the first act, they skipped the second act and went to the third act of that little relationship there. They were missing a middle scene.
Yeah. And I think part of that is that it's so reliant on the tropes of both Batman and Superman.
Yeah.
It kind of expects us to fill in the pieces.
Yeah. Might be harder for those of us that don't have the pieces.
Right. Yeah. But like, I don't think they require you to know anything to understand the story. It's just like, oh yeah, Superman's a good guy. Like, and they do a little bit of that with like the Waynes being presented as being such good people also, and like the heroic things that he gravitated towards, like Sherlock Holmes, like Zorro, et cetera. John Carter was a fun callback because John Carter is one of the inspirations for Superman's powers. So we get this idea that he is influenced by the things that you would expect a Superman to be influenced by. But yeah, then we get the confrontation with Luthor, and it just ends with like Batman rolling up and being like, no, I am so powerful. You literally can't do anything. Like Luthor has no chance in this confrontation. The best he can do is he can be like, all right, well, I'm going to have like a whole city of mercenaries attacking everyone, which happens so fucking fast.
Yeah.
And like reading it for this read, I was like, wait, is he just pointing out wars on the planet? Because like Superman kind of get here around the planet sometimes. And like, are we doing that kind of a thing? Being like, how can you waste your time on me, a little criminal, while there's such terrible atrocities? No, it's a war in Gotham City.
Very Batman Begins again.
Yeah. It's a war in Gotham City that Bruce deals with in about 4 pages.
Right. And again, because that, like, I guess the argument is that, like, oh, yeah, well, yeah, Superman can handle that kind of shit. Batman isn't up to snuff for that. Superman is, like, there's a reason the comic is Superman speeding bullets and not Batman speeding bullets. So he decides, like, all right, I'm going to go deal with this. And so he drops Luthor to let him die. And Lois is like, no. And he's like, okay. And he goes and saves him.
Fine. I guess I'll save him this time.
And he stops everything. And there's one line. Hang on.
It takes one person saying no, and then you decide not to murder someone.
To be fair, he just dropped him. Maybe he was just trying to scare him.
Maybe.
From a really high point up. He was like, oh, I wasn't going to let him die. Ha ha ha.
I always remember whenever I see people, in movies or comics where they just drop people off of high shelves. I'm like, I've always been told that it's not the fall that kills you, it's the heart attack you have on the way down. Luther's dead. You dropped him. He had a heart attack and he died.
Oh yeah, I mean, he definitely broke his arm.
Oh, of course.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, the speed necessary for all those things was not not a thing that gets stopped.
He didn't really drop him. He kind of like threw him down.
Right. Yeah.
He was like, screw it. And he threw him. Lois is like, no. And he's like, fine.
The Luthor Joker face paint is creepy. I'm just going back there and looking at some of these panels. I like the Luthor Joker, but he does look a lot like a cue ball.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, their fusion works really well from a design standpoint because Luthor looks pretty good in a suit. And this is like the era of businessman Lex. So suits make sense. And both of them typically adopt a purple and green color scheme because like those secondary colors are usually associated with villains or like mixed ideals in comics. Like it's the primary colors for your heroes. And then like either your anti-heroes or your villains adopt the secondary ones. So green, purple, are like pretty common for those kind of looks. So like Luthor often is wearing like a purple and green armor or like a purple and green jumpsuit. And the Joker always is wearing like a purple suit. So that fusion works really well, visually speaking. You could really imagine like going back to the movie idea, like imagine the vain Lex Luthor from the Superman movie, where he wears a toupee and has just a host of selections to put on. Like you could imagine like a bald Joker putting on like a green toupee for this one or a red toupee for this cape or like whatever kind of clown outfit he thinks like looks the best for his outfit. Like I think really makes sense. Like, and I kind of want to see that. Like the fact that they went with Fat Lex is the only thing that like kind of like keeps it from being like an all-time like perfect look. Because like imagine like a buff Lex Luthor Joker. Like he's not as skinny as the Joker. He's got like that like peak human kind of look. Like the Clancy Brown like Lex Luthor.
Yeah, the Justice League Unlimited Luthor.
Yeah.
He's like all do.
I think if I remember the reasoning behind Lex being the Joker in here is something to do with like a lab accident.
Yeah, so he owns the chemical plant that would be the Joker chemical plant in this. So rather than falling into it, they're like
it exploded.
There's some kind of fire or something, and he gets like bathed in the chemicals that like normally the Joker would have fallen into.
Oh, and it drove him insane and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird. But
yeah, and like it works as like a combo thing. Like he has that like the helicopter pack, which is like such a perfect like super genius but also clown kind of device. Like you could see that for like Toy Man or something. Obviously Inspector Gadget, like, but it works really well for this sort of like fused kind of nature of like, yeah, he's the genius mad scientist Lex Luthor, but everything's going to be a gag kind of design for Joker. And like I wish I saw more. Like Zach, what you were saying, this is just a little too short. Like I want to see more of this like joined universe that they're conceiving of, like other supervillains, more of Joker doing stuff that's actually like bad as opposed to just being like, oh yeah, I hired some goons. Like that's it. That was my master plan.
Yeah. One of the things that struck me as weird, I think very early on, it's talking about how I think it was kind of introducing the idea that Superman might have been who he became because of where he landed. And later on at the end of the little book, they kind of use the same wording again, where there could only be one series of events that gives you Superman. And it feels kind of like a cop-out because you just showed me a second way of how you get Superman.
How do you mean?
I think very early on, one of the first pages is talking about all the different things that could have gone wrong. Maybe he lands somewhere else. And it's talking about, I don't know if the words were exactly this, but there's like one series of events that gets us Superman. And then you start watching along this whole little journey here. And I'll be honest, because of that opening little thing where it's like there's only one series of events that gets you to Superman, I kind of thought that they were going to have Bruce kind of not go the Superman route and then maybe take a darker turn and go the other way with it, where it kind of shows you it's a good thing that he was raised by the Kents instead of the Waynes because of the circumstances of his life. But then at the end of the book, it's kind of like a cop out. It's like, oh no, we just kind of lied to you. There's other ways that you get to Superman. It's just there's a little bit of a different journey on the way.
Well, I think what they're doing is they're trying to be ironic because the whole thing is presented as an essay by Lois Lane explaining what we find out is this is the story of Superman.
And okay.
Right. And so like in the opening, it's meant to be like a little bit of a misdirect for you. Like it feels like it's talking about how he's going to land in the Kent farm and that's how he gets Superman that way. And then at the end, it's like, oh, can you imagine if he had landed anywhere else? Like in a fascist dictatorship, a Kansas farm, and like they like are rattling off. None of those would allow us to get to where we are now. None of those would get to Superman. Like the idea is to be like playing with our expectations of what we know about the characters.
I guess I was just wishing that maybe they'd gone somewhere else with it. I kind of wanted to see an evil Superman Batman who just goes nuts.
Yeah, someone who was like a little bit crazier. I am amazed at that opening bit that we didn't get a Martha line in there. Like, can you imagine? Like,
please,
because they go out of their way to not show too much at first, like in the first couple panels.
Yeah.
Of like Thomas Wayne running to it, like so you can't clearly see him, and also like who can just identify Thomas Wayne just by looking at him? Like every artist is going to be different. It's not a character who has like very like clear signifiers visually.
Yeah.
So it should be, it's all right, Martha. You should have had some line like that because here is the appropriate time to do the Martha reference.
Gosh, the precursor to all the Martha.
And I can't get over that. Like. They immediately jump to like Mr. and Mrs. Wayne, they at no point do like the fun bit there, and it's a shame because that would have actually been rather fun. But we get it where we get this line towards the end of it all where Lois is giving this sort of thesis about like the transformation. She says it's like a butterfly coming out of a cocoon. And she says the line, "For so many years, denying the wounded little boy who'd watched traumatized and helpless while his parents were murdered. That's who Batman was, a child in a Halloween costume playing out a lifetime of guilt and anger. And his vision was as narrow as a child's focused on one goal, punishing the bad men who'd taken his mother and father away." And I'm like, that is such an indictment of Batman.
What?
Yeah. I really like that part. In the end, where I think it's kind of trying to make you kind of see the Batman was more of the cocoon that then bloomed into Superman or whatever. Mm-hmm. But that misdirect just made me mad a little bit. The misdirect made me think I was going to get something else.
Well, what I do find weird is that I don't know why you would change your name to Superman. Like, even if you're like being like, oh no, Batman was me being a shitty guy. Like, I totally understand. Like, that's not the look I want to have. Like Superman, I've said this before. It's a descriptor, not a title. Like, it's a Superman can do this, the Superman did this, and eventually you gain the familial nature with this character where you feel like, oh, it's my friend Superman, you know. But for like until you mentally remove the or a is there, and so it works for Superman because he's like the first character that way. Like, if I were going to name myself a superhero name, I wouldn't just be like cool guy or like awesome dude or like that impressive guy. like you feel like you have to have someone like call you that a few times until eventually it sticks. Like you don't go around being like, no, I am impressive man. Like,
I am awesome man.
You can't come up with your own nickname.
Like, I don't mind the costume he adopts that much, aside from it having the 90s like head sock. Like I kind of dig I'm a sucker for like the shoulder to chest like V like formation on the costume. Like I love those whenever I see it in a look. I think that the two-tone worked actually pretty well there. I think it actually does a pretty good job of even not having the belt or like the underpants and whatnot. Like, I think it works fine here.
Got to get our Superman without the underpants. the way it was meant.
But yeah, it's just weird because like, why would he take the name Superman? Unless they're all like, man, fuck, we thought we had a Batman in our city. It turns out we have a Superman. And I feel like we need to have that scene.
It almost looks like his muscles get smaller the closer to Superman he gets. Oh, look at it.
Well, again, it's a big padded suit. So.
It's like they start drawing him with less muscles as the comic goes on.
Well, it's also the artist is probably getting tired at that point.
Yeah,
that's fair. That's absolutely fair.
Yeah, like
I could save a lot of time by just giving him a 6-pack instead of a 16-pack.
I mean, you got to remember this is like the era of like the Joel Schumacher Batman movies, so like probably the reference point for it is like that full like sculpted physique kind of design.
Those outfits never made sense because they almost look plastic.
They almost
they are.
I say almost. We all know it's plastic. I'm just trying to be nice.
Yeah. Although imagine like the Michael Keaton Batman, but with heat vision, because like he can't turn his head, but he could just be like floating and just like rotating and firing heat at people, but not able to actually turn his head to do anything with it.
Like a turret just floating in the air.
It's like, why'd you bother wearing that suit? Yeah, so like Zach, when you and I were like chatting about this after you did your read, we were saying that the idea is bigger than the actual execution. And I think that that's sort of a fair criticism of this. Like, it's too short. The idea is really cool. But like we were saying, it would be nice to have more of that kind of story. And like, you know, they kind of are, the cover makes you think, okay, we're going to get all the cool stuff about Batman, which is not that he dresses like a bat and is scary, but is like, oh, he's the world's greatest detective and he's trained in all this stuff. And we get all those things plus Superman.
Did they even do?
And that's not what they do here.
Yeah, I don't remember it really any detecting going on.
Well, they mentioned it a bunch in the beginning, like his dad was trying to like teach him how to do that stuff, and that's why he was like, Sherlock Holmes, I want to be like him too. His dad's like, that's a great character, and then nothing.
And then they did nothing with it.
Yeah, that's the weird part there. And I do get that we are doing a different conversation about like the nature of your parents are murdered in front of you and you had the power to stop it. How is that different? And it's a darker Batman as a result. But it's a bummer that we're not like explore. I don't know. It's fun and I like it. And I like J.M. DeMatteis. Like as a writer, I think he's really good. He is still doing like fun stuff. Like he just finished doing like the Justice League. What is it? The Dini-verse book that was just running, Justice League Unlimited book that was running, which had this whole like cool multiverse thing. Like great writer, still working. Was working in the 80s. He was the writer on the Ruby Spears Superman cartoon, all of the backup features, which are like the young Clark Kent stories. So like he's a writer who thinks a lot about Superman and like the process of growing up, because he just worked on that. Like 5 years before this, he's doing the cartoons that are about like young Superman. Like I think he has like a lot of cool thoughts about what it would take for a person who has this infinite power to be a good person ultimately. But he does, like, the book does kind of denigrate Batman in that regard by being like, no, it's just a phase before you grow up and become a real superhero. It's his goth phase in high school.
This version of Batman is almost what I think Superman would think of Bruce Wayne.
Oh, it's just like him dreaming, being like, man, can you imagine if I was Batman? Well, obviously I would have murdered the killer of my parents with my heat vision.
Yeah.
Can't even imagine a Joker that isn't just Lex Luthor. He's just like, well, obviously the Joker must be Lex Luthor.
Yeah, I don't understand why Lex Luthor becomes the Joker if all that changed in this universe is that Superman is now Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, again, it's really more of an amalgam. It's really fusing the two characters rather than like diverting one into the other person's timeline. Because yeah, the question would be like, wouldn't he just have Batman's villains? Yeah. Like, I guess is the answer. Like, yeah.
I mean, would he still? Because like after the first run-in, I'm pretty sure they'd be in like a...
No, they'd be dead.
Yeah.
He immolated a number of people, and it kind of... The comic book almost seems to forget that he killed at least 4 or 5 people in this.
At least 10 people, because the other guys, he like broke their necks and stuff. They're not getting back up.
Yeah, lots of crippled people in this.
Yeah, a lot of broken people or dead people.
Several dead. Some of it by way of heat vision burning away your body, which is, ooh, that's terrible.
That's a painful way to go, too. I see that and I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to get an evil Superman. Let's see it. Or evil Superman / Batman, whatever the fuck we're supposed to call him.
Yeah, it's so hard. We keep wanting to say Clark, the one name he isn't. And he is Superman. He is Batman. He is Kal-El. He's Bruce, but he's not Clark.
He's Bruce. He's not Clark. But he is also Superman.
Eventually.
Yeah, eventually.
Once he grows out of his Batman face. But yeah, it's true. Like, because like think about the heavy hitter Batman villains. Like if Killer Croc confronts this guy or Bane confronts this guy, like Bane coming from South America has armor resistant plates under his skin, has a super steroid in his body, and has had nightmares his entire life of the Bat. And he comes to confront the Bat and break him, and he punches him and breaks his hand on Batman's jaw. It's like, wait, this isn't supposed to happen. I can rip cars apart. And he's like, I can rip cars apart when I'm with my pinky. Oh, fuck. And then he's just done.
Batman breaks Bane.
But it makes you think like, oh man, we could have had all kinds of fun fusions of characters. Like, can you imagine like a Two-Face that was like also like Brainiac, like half robot, or like Metallo, I guess actually would be the perfect one there. Yeah, like a Two-Face Metallo hybrid, or like a Brainiac Riddler hybrid. Like those would all be like, actually that one works really well with that. Use Brainiac. Oh fuck, these all would be great. Like, but they don't spend any time with that, and that's why I feel like this feels like if you were writing, like I said, like a screenplay for it. You know, the events are pretty similar to like the '89 Batman movie. Like Joker shows up and we're kind of just dealing with all that. Like it feels like also like the script for a Superman movie, but it feels like the movie because it's that uni threat. Like there's only one supervillain that we're dealing with. It's also their origin story, and rather than like having a montage of all the characters he encountered and locked up or anything like that, like, which would be if you really wanted to have fun with this idea. It's almost too small of a story for this concept.
It really is. Because
it's just like the Joker shows up, he confronts him once and wins. And that's it. Like there's no like, I'm almost losing in this time. Where he had me outsmarted or outwitted about something, or like
you, Batman.
I had to be in two places at once kind of moments. It's just like he confronts the Joker.
There's also no kryptonite at all. Which you'd think that they would do something with that to like even the playing field or something. Just they never did.
Yeah, like the speeding bullet could actually be a kryptonite bullet that kills him at the end. Like he finally stops like being awful and he gets like gunned down, and that's like tying the whole thing together.
That would be brutal. This would have been like a good miniseries.
Yeah, I was gonna say this would be a great like HBO Max miniseries, like a single run miniseries,
or something like that. What If series that Marvel did about which is, Batman is or Superman is Batman for 6 episodes. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, this feels like that first episode of the What If TV show with Captain Carter, because it's just like we're going to rearrange some stuff to like fit different people into those slots kind of thing. And that had the same problem where it felt a little too short. It's just like we're going to run through these events real quickly and get to the status quo that we need to have. Likewise here, we're going to run through the basic. I say the basic, but it's not like Batman is known for like, oh yeah, he showed up on Gotham and had to stop a gang war. Not even gang war, like a mercenary war from the Joker. Yeah, it's too short. It's 60 pages. It should have been like a 3-issue miniseries or something like that. Like we should have had like a little bit of an arc to the characters.
Yeah. A little bit more time probably make this, I'd say, twice as good. Just it needed more time. It really did.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's frustrating because it is so cool.
It's a very cool concept.
Again, all the premise is awesome. The costumes look great. The art's pretty good. Like it's it feels very 90s and like more Batman than Superman, but like it's pretty good. And like as a Superman fan, I'm all about saying like, yeah, Batman's the childish superhero and Superman's the more optimistic adult character who's like, we can better our world. But yeah, and it's weird because it's the early era of Elseworlds, which are doing these kind of like tweaked kind of universe stories. And it was heavily advertised at the time because it was such a cool idea. So like ads were all over the place being like, Batman is coming, and they'd show him flying through the night and stuff like that. Like the cover image is such we haven't talked about the cover. The cover is a tribute to Superman 1, where he's like leaping over the city. It's such a beautiful look of having Batman in that position. It instantly sells the story you're doing. The only other thing you could do that would work just as well is literally Batman holding a car over his head to hit someone with it.
Oh man.
Like if you're trying to sell it that it's Superman, but we're putting Batman in that spot, that's how you do it. So there's a lot going on in that, but it's also early on in the Elseworlds runs where they were trying to do these like really short stories. And by really short, it's 60 pages. It's not like a regular comic book, but like it's not a full mini. It's not like The Nail. Like The Nail, which we talked about a few months ago, that was letting that story breathe a bit.
Yeah.
And this one is very compressed, and it would have been nice to have more time in this world of a superpowered Batman.
Yeah, they had done this like they did The Nail, which is like 5 episodes, five books.
No, that's only 3 issues, but they're big issues too.
Oh yeah, but they have done that 3 times as good, guaranteed.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't need to be Kingdom Come length. Like, so I think 3 issues actually would be a really nice length for this one. 3 60-page issues. Like, that's a pretty decent book right there.
Yeah.
You could have done like because you could have done Robin. Like, how do you get your Jimmy Olsen Robin's story there? Or Dick Grayson as like a newsboy. Like you could have had this whole arc for the characters and a different villain in each issue or something like that. But instead it's like, all right, we're going to do the most basic Batman story we can / the most basic Superman story we can and link them together. And like I said, it feels too short for this, and it feels like it should have been like an animated movie.
Yeah.
Miniseries. That'd be awesome. Somebody call up HBO. We've got this great pitch for you guys that's guaranteed to work.
Yeah.
Well, it's true because like Batman sells. Like people would be like, "Oh shit, I would check that out," because he sold in the 90s. He sells today. Like it is really easy to advertise the story. You just show a picture of Batman flying, and people are like, "Fuck yeah."
Oh man, don't even call it don't even say Batman or Superman. Just say Speeding Bullets as the title.
Right. Yeah, you show the rocket ship crash at Wayne Manor. Which, you get like
by the way,
Martha, be careful.
That rocket ship was like this big.
I feel like a rocket ship crashing at a manor would make news.
Yeah, but it was super tiny.
They've got a really big estate, guys.
No, because like Alfred takes him downstairs when they had the whole big reveal, like, "Oh, you're not human," ha ha ha, and he takes him
in the Batcave.
Yeah, in the Batcave, and like the rocket is sitting on like a workbench, and like it's like they've got like Alfred talks to him about it, and Bruce starts going through. I want to say Clark. Bruce starts going through like the notebooks that Thomas is writing about it and everything, and that's how he learns about his history/heritage. They call it the event.
Yeah, when the rocket crashes.
But it's a really small ship.
This is a really weird design for a ship. It looks like it has a glass bubble on it.
Well, so that's the 90s look. We are talking about next time the Man of Steel miniseries. Sorry, I'm trying to remember when these record in relation to each other. So behind the curtains, we are recording our tie-in episode for the Dark Knight Fortnite now, as opposed to a couple weeks ago when we were banking a bunch of episodes. So we talked about the Man of Steel miniseries, which was the relaunch in the 80s for Superman. And that design came from that book, where it's not a rocket ship per se. It is a birthing pod with a rocket attached to it, because on Krypton, all the babies are test tube babies grown in a vat, and that's the vat. And they just like strapped a rocket with duct tape and fired him into space.
Good luck, son.
Yep. So when you say it looks like an egg, it is. Like, it's actually like a weird Kryptonian tech egg that like raises babies.
It feels like a dangerous design for a spaceship.
I mean,
yeah.
Kind of.
You can run into a rock and baby's dead.
Well, they say it's pretty tough. They're like, they make a point of being like, it's tough enough to survive hyperspace, but not so strong that it'll survive the destruction of our planet. And that's why I'm attaching rockets to it and shooting it off.
Do they aim it, or do they just send it on its way to potentially fly into a star?
They aim it
awkwardly. They aim it so well that they even say we're aiming it at a subsection called Kansas.
Yeah. Well, it missed. It didn't.
Yes, in this case. A little bit of wind, or whatever the thing they say could have like diverted it from its course.
I'll say this: as somebody who lives in Kansas and is currently speaking over there, this place fucking sucks. Oop, can I say that word? I don't know if I can say that word. Kansas is boring.
No, we are in the blue. It's totally fine.
Kansas is so boring. There's nothing here. I hate it. I'm amazed that Superman doesn't go insane from boredom.
Well, I mean, that is kind of the premise of Smallville and the current show, Superman and Lois, where it's just like, he's so bored. Oh, wait, there's a weird thing.
Smallville always irritated me because so many high school students died and nobody ever shut that school down.
That is very true.
I mean, that was just the thing of the 90s. Like, in like season 3 of Buffy, they were like, so many of us have died. None of us have talked about it. It's really weird. Buffy, you're the only reason any of us are still alive.
Smallville's in memoriam section probably takes up a good 6 to 7 pages. Oh, yeah. I'd hate to be on the school's yearbook. This is the most depressing job ever.
Yeah, I remember how like devastated I was just to have one person in my class die, let alone like 8 or 9 or 15 or whatever number it is. Smallville was 10 seasons? So is that someone?
I vaguely think they canceled school for us the day that one of our classmates died, and Smallville had that happen almost every week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or he just went missing. People care about that shit, guys.
Smallville also isn't that big of a town. Everybody knew each other.
Yeah.
It's literally a Smallville.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the downside of talking about a comic that has such a cool premise, but is also so easy to sum up in just one sentence, where it's Superman, but he's Batman.
But don't worry,
is that he
falls in love with Lois Lane and then it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, but that's it. Yeah,
that's it. That's the overall plot.
He gave up his grief and he became Superman. Is that there's not that much to say. It is a little too short of a story in terms of like having. Like, for such a cool idea, like, I can't believe this Batman/Superman has never shown up again. Like, DC does these multiverse events all the time, and like the Red Sun Superman, where it's Superman but he's Russian, shows up every fucking time, because it's like, well, yeah, it's Russian Superman. Of course, it's fun to show that character. This one's fun too. I don't know why like, this is his one appearance.
People are more afraid of the communists than a Batman with superpowers.
In that, he is objectively a good guy.
Yeah, like, he really is.
Up until he accidentally takes over the world. But he is objectively a good guy until that point.
Well, I mean, technically he was manipulated to certain degrees, but like he still is kind of like.
God, now I need to read this, don't I? This sounds interesting.
Superman runs really good. You should read that. It's really good.
Is it better than this?
Yeah. Well.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
because that's the right length. Like it's 3 issues where you get to spend some time with young Superman, like young Russian Superman, where it's like really optimistic, getting more used to his role in society, and then like his decline as he sort of like overextends himself. And that I think is what we needed here. You know, we needed Batman. Because we needed that tribute to like older Batman stuff, like the vigilante thing. We needed a Robin, you know, like we need all those Batman tropes that we're gonna like expect, because it feels like we got, you know, a smidgen of Batman. We got Batman and the Joker, and that's it. Like we got just the 89 Batman movie, and I honestly want the Batman Forever for this. Like I want all those. Like I even would take the Dark Knight Returns kind of story, and like that has to be a conversation someone had where it's like, all right, well, how do you do the Dark Knight Returns where the finale is just Batman and Superman fighting? What if he's the same person? It could have been Bizarro.
Yeah.
I understood that.
Superman.
I think I understood that reference.
But we just needed more, you know, and like because like this could have been so referential and fun, and it's still a fun story and a quick read, and like for someone who doesn't know it, you know, it's not reliant on backstory for all this stuff, but it you know, it is also very quick. Like there's no big struggle for Superman. He's always in complete control of the situation. It's just he's like pushing himself too far, and maybe that's the thesis where it's just like, well, he is so caught up in his own guilt. He could do everything, and he's doing such a little thing. Kind of like a Batman who's so rich that he could do a lot more with his money. But instead, he's just beating up people.
Running around at night, beating up homeless people.
I know it's lazy. I know he's got charities. God fucking at me. No, I mean, like, again, yeah. So there's not a ton to say other than just like, man, I wish there was more. Like, that's a bummer.
Yeah, it really is. We keep saying it's a really cool concept, but it's so short.
It'd be better if it was a little longer, because then the tropes that it relies on wouldn't be as bad. You can forgive tropes if they're a little bit better done than this one was.
Yeah, like his heart being like swayed by the woman he loves and all that.
It would be better if there was more of it.
Yeah, some like will they won't they kind of bickering going on, like her, you know, this is a slightly more confident Kal-El than the Clark Kent we normally get. You know, he's rich, he's handsome, he's nice, he's a little clumsy, like he's driven by justice and passion. Like obviously he's the perfect man here, but like there should be like some moments where you're like, are you like where he overreaches, you know, like have a story about like what does Bruce Wayne running a newspaper look like? Like that actually is a question I'm curious about. Like I feel like that's a cool story, you know, where he's so rich and he's telling people to like, you know, like where does he overreach? Like maybe that's the second issue, like where he's like, no, you can't run that story on Batman because it makes Batman look bad, and like maybe it like makes a criminal, like it'll make a criminal get off easy or something like that, you know. Like where is that conflict of their of it all?
You can't run that story so where Batman melted people's faces.
Right, exactly.
That's not a good look, guys. Come on. You don't want to do that. I mean,
because just think on a planetary level how impossibly powerful this Batman is. This Batman is all the powers of Superman and a billionaire.
Oh God.
Yeah, that's not fair.
This is just making me afraid of if Jeff Bezos finds a way to get superpowers.
Right, because he's not going to be as good as that.
No, there'll be no stopping him.
He'll make it so you could rent it, and it's going to cost you like a shitload of money for a monthly subscription.
This is Superpowers Prime.
What else are you going to do? Are you going to just drive? No, you could fly.
Yeah, I'm going to introduce you to Superpowers Prime.
He's going to give him the super vial from All-Star Superman. The 24-hour potion. $5 billion.
How the fuck did we get here?
I don't know. It's us speculating on all the things they could do with this book that they don't do in this book. Like, it's just a flat, like, we're going to dabble in Batman, and then at the end he's going to be like, no, Batman's a bad idea. I should be Superman.
Seriously, HBO, DC, hit us up. We got these ideas, okay? We have all these great ideas, and you guys don't believe in us.
Metallo Two-Face. Harvey Dent is wounded so terribly that they have to transplant his brain into a robot body. And then when he discovers it, he rips off his flesh on one side. It's perfect. It works so well. Brainiac Riddler. Riddler's brain gets uploaded into the Brainiac servers, and now it's just like a supercomputer of questions.
I want to read these comic books.
They would be awesome if they existed.
Yeah.
Or you could do the reverse. Have Edward Nygma working on like a HAL 9000.
Oh, he creates Brainiac?
Yeah, he creates Brainiac.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's also pretty good.
And then Brainiac gains sentience, and that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. Seriously, come on, guys. DC, HBO,
yeah.
We got this, okay?
But that's it. I mean, like, again, the costume's great. It's on DC Universe Infinite right now, so if you have a subscription, you can check it out. And our complaint is that it's too short, so it's not like it's a big time commitment to check it out. No. Like, I would recommend it to everyone, even if it's underwhelming. It's still really cool. How about you guys?
Yes, same thing. It's a really cool concept, lots of fun. But
I remember enjoying it until about the last 10 pages. And
yeah,
I'm like, they're sprinting towards a finish line that they're not ready to go to.
Yeah, even 2 issues would just like make it feel like we had some time with it. Like he's barely Batman.
He's Batman for 20 minutes.
Yeah, not forever. It's for nothing. Well, Zach, this is the comic that I dragged you out of your retirement from to read. Do I need to be saying sorry?
No. I still enjoyed reading it. It's just, I wish they had done more with it. Which is, I think we have about an hour of audio that is us explaining how we wish there was a little bit more of it.
All right.
And then giving our ideas of what they could have done. We should be writers.
I mean, sometimes you just want to create your own superhero universe. So, Zach, people have listened to me talk about my adventures as Hank Hamilton, one of the young Sentinels. But talk a little bit about your own experiences.
I am on the S.H.U. podcast as well, but I'm on a different little show. I am an alien from space who, in a lot of ways, is a lot of Superman tropes about her. She was carrying all of her people around her neck for a while. That seems like a Superman thing to do. She's got a lot of time powers. She's really powerful, and she's very angry all the time. And a lot of the show is June tempting me to kill people, and me having to resist that urge.
She's palpitating you.
Yeah, she's insidious.
I feel like I have spent the entire season trying to make Zach control his anger, and now we're gonna just let him go hog wild. We still have like 3 episodes of Weirdos that have to come out. Oh, we call ourselves the Weirdos, by the way. I don't know if we've ever said it on canon, but the shorthand is we are the Weirdos group.
The Weird Adventures in Space show. So for those who are tuning into just this episode and have never listened to anything else that we've done, S.H.U. is a singular podcast feed with weekly episodes, but each week is a different show, all in the same canon of comic stuff. So there's Young Sentinels, which is what I'm on, Weird Adventures in Space, which is what you're on, Zach, Tales of Villainy, and then Union of Heroes. And so it's just the different like not all the different types, but it's 4 different types of superhero stories you can do. Teen Team, like A-listers, your space stuff, and then your villains kind of story. And yeah, that's that story. It's a lot of fun. People should check out the S.H.U. podcast. Like it's great. I really enjoy it. I was so glad to meet June at that GeeklyCon and apparently meet you, although it was like 3 a.m. when we were all just like sitting around a table talking about both a card game and also Superman. So it's it's been a while.
I think we only talked for like an hour. And then I went and I got drunk and forgot the rest of the night.
I mean, I was in the process of, so you know, as it were. Man, that the last GeeklyCon, that was fun. I miss conventions. But people should check that out, and then they should check out the rest of the Certain Point of View Dark Knight Fortnite that we are doing for the release of the Batman. There's tons of great shows doing Batman stuff. I'm going to point out that it was the Real Movie Critic versus the Cine Guy who got the ball rolling on it. So their show is going to be sort of the point for that because they're actually going to be reviewing The Batman. And they're guesting on a bunch of other shows. Like I'm doing the art right now for Screen Snark where they're guesting on that. But over on Another Pass, my other show, we're talking about Batman and Robin. We've got lots of Batman content. So if you like Batman and don't like the fact that we spent a while talking about how he is the child in a Halloween costume and is not as mature as Superman,
prove us wrong.
Check out all those other ones, which definitely going to be much more praising of Batman than the Superman show.
Oh man!
I honestly didn't think I didn't remember that it was that negative about Batman when I suggested we talk about this book. I was like, oh yeah, he's Batman, and then becomes Superman at the end. I forgot that they were like quite so mean about the character and that I would be in that mode too, even though I also like Batman. It's just like you got to deal, like you have to come to terms with the fact that money can do a lot.
I also prefer Batman over Superman.
Sure. I like, and I get it. Like it's kind of funny to think about sometimes. Like just be like in Superman Batman Generations, he's so wealthy that he takes over like the League of Shadows, Ra's al Ghul's like organization, and turns it into like an aid service that like brings like medicine to people all over the world and whatnot. And after he's done with all of that and like basically turns the world into a utopia by way of being rich, he's like, all right, well, now that I've done that, I'm going to go back to being Batman because I enjoy being Batman. And that's a Batman I respect, where it's his hobby. Like the small stuff is like relief from saving the world on a bigger scale. And I get that version. But yeah, this book is a little more negative than that.
Doesn't paint him in a super positive light.
But if you want a more positive light on Batman, there's lots of Batman content. Check it all out. We're going to be posting episodes on Twitter under the hashtag Dark Knight Fortnite. So check out all those. You can find all of that at certainpov.com. You can find us on Discord, where we have a link at certainpov.com to that Discord. We're having this call on Discord right now. Come interact with us. We really enjoy just chatting with people, sharing memes, giving sneak peeks for episodes, talking about Batman, talking about other stuff. If it's nerdy, we can talk about it. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Case Aiken. You can find the show at Men of Steel Pod. J Mike, where can they find you?
They can find me on Twitter at JMike101. And you know, the more I look at this costume, I'm like, it'll be really terrifying if he didn't have any eyes.
Right?
Oh man.
Like what? He doesn't need it aside from maybe the heat beams. So okay, so I guess he probably has eye holes every time.
Yeah.
And they have to put a new mask on the next day.
Yeah.
They don't start with eye holes.
Right. It is just a gimp suit. He bought at a store. I mean, this Kal-El, his mom did not make his outfit, so he had to buy it.
Or like every time you see him, like he's got the no eyes, but by the end of the night, he's like zapped so many people that are like smoke coming off the costume where his eyes are.
Right. God, what does burning leather smell like? I don't want to think about that. Anyway. We'll be back in 2 weeks talking about Man of Steel, the 1986 miniseries that relaunched Superman for quote-unquote the modern era, even though that's now several retcons past at this point.
That was about 4 modern eras ago, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Exactly. More or less. But for a while, and when this comic came out, that was the modern reintroduction of Superman. So we'll be back for that. Zach, thank you for coming on the show.
Yay. It went better than I thought it would.
Do you have any plugs you want to give besides S.H.U?
I could be found on Twitter at Purple Space Witch without the E in purple because I tie too much of my identity into the character that I play on the said show.
Fair enough. Check that out. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Until then, stay super, man.
Men of Steel is a certain POV production. Our hosts are J. Mike Folsom and Case Aiken. The show is edited by Matt Storm. Our logo is by Chris Batista. Episode art is by Case Aiken. And our theme is by Jeff Moon.
Is that your regular sign-off?
Yeah.
Oh, God damn it.
This March, get ready for 2 weeks of The Bat. 2 weeks of vengeance. 2 weeks of The Dark Knight Fortnite.
Hey there, Screen Beans. Have you heard about Screen Snark? Rachel, this is an ad break. They aren't screen beans until they listen to the show.
Fine. Potential screen beans. You like movies and TV shows, right?
I mean, who doesn't? Screen Snark is a casual conversation about the movies and television shows that are shaping us as we live our everyday lives.
That's right, Matt. We have a chat with at least one incredible guest every episode, hailing from all walks. We've interviewed chefs,
writers, costumers, musicians,
yoga teachers, comedians, burlesque dancers,
folks in the film and TV industry,
and more.
We'd be delighted for you to join us every other Monday on the Certain POV Podcast Network.
Or wherever you get your podcasts, fresh and tasty off the presses.
What? That's not.
Can I call them screen beans now?
Fine.
Screen beans.
So tune in and we'll see you at the movies or on a couch somewhere.
'Cause you're all screen beans now.
You will be mine. Aurora.
CPOV.
CertainPOV.com.